time. I appreciate it. I see you have your guitar ready. So do you want to start with the song? You want to hit that later? What are you feeling?
You know what? Let's chat, and then. But yeah, it's ready. So.
Okay, sounds good. So first off, Michael, tell me a little bit about how you're doing right now. How are you holding up through COVID? I know you're getting kind of creative.
Yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of people, it's it's a massive adjustment, right? Like it changes the way you approach situations and people and thinking, and so there's definitely that element that kind of underlines and underwrites everything. But in terms of being a musician and still playing, like I've been able to play these concerts, like these 4-person concerts, really in my backyard, and that's it's definitely been making it like quite an exciting summer, actually. When I think about that.
Yeah. So you're calling it what, Greenbrier tent? Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. So the tent itself, I mean, it's not one specific tent. Like when the tour starts on September the 1st, the tent actually grows. It'll still be called the Greenbrier. But the shows in the backyard are called Summer Nights.
Okay. And so tell me about how that idea came about. I mean, obviously it comes from a passion of wanting to just still get out there and play music, right?
Yeah, the original idea was actually going to be a tour first. I thought about it in January because, I've spent so many years as a touring artist here in Canada, and there's long drives in this country, and I've, you end up playing a lot of the same venues, and you end up staying in the same hotels, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun to like make a venue and bring that around with me and do a tour that way? I thought that'd be kind of interesting. So that was the original design of it. And I was supposed to start touring in June. But then, as this kind of shift set in March there, I put it on the back burner thinking about releasing this music and if I was going to still release and follow the same kind of release timeline. And then after we kind of sorted that, I thought about the tent again. And then it kind of converted into this like Las Vegas style backyard residency. I've been playing 5 nights a week back there. And we obviously brought down the capacity too. Like I thought originally maybe it was going to be 30 people, 40 people, and then we brought it down to 4.
So really,
yeah, so quite a change.
Yeah, and so how do you mix up your set every night? Like, what is your approach with how you line up what you're going to perform?
Well, so we in the end I'll do about 55. I think actually it's going to be 56 shows in the backyard, and the tickets sold in under 5 hours for all of them. And so what I've been finding is every night there's a whole everyone has a different set of favorite songs, and they have a different set of questions they've been meaning to ask at this show or that show when we just didn't have a chance to chat. And so what I do is I've been kicking things off with a couple new songs. And then I kind of just let the conversation and people's favorite songs kind of dictate where we go. So every night it's different. I'm back there for about an hour and 45 minutes a night. But the set list has never been the same twice.
That's a pretty intensive set. I mean, you're jamming for a while, huh?
Well, and we're chatting for a while too. Like I it's not that there's music the whole time. Like there's definitely a healthy amount of chatting. Because I find people, if I was to go play like a hometown show, which Calgary is my hometown. If I was to play a hometown show, I usually will go out to the lobby of the theater after the show, and I'll talk to people as long as I can, and I'll be out there for a couple of hours. But you never get in depth with anybody, right? Like you're always just kind of bouncing from conversation to conversation. So this allows, like we're having a full on chat. Like we'll go off on tangents. We'll be chatting about this or that. It's great.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. I mean, I think it's creative, and I know a lot of bands are struggling right now. A lot of musicians, it's a tough time. I mean, it's already tough when you're talking about streaming music and and not being able to sell albums and all of that, right? But bringing this and not being able to tour, which you live off of, right? I mean, you got to get creative, and I applaud you for how you've done that. So,
well, thanks. I think the whole kind of idea and then the change for the idea came around super organically. But yeah, I was just actually, writing a little note about it today. Like it's it still allowed me to just like connect with people too. And there hasn't been a night that's gone by that I haven't heard some fresh perspective on this whole time.
Yeah.
Which is interesting too, to hear that many, like just every night you go, oh, like that's what it's like to be a teacher right now, or oh wow, like I never thought about that, or
Yeah, we know we're all going through it and operating in it differently, but it's like, okay, yeah, this person has really having to juggle because of their life, how their life is, stacked, and the support that they have, and kids, and how they're learning, and all of that, right? I mean, that's my forefront right now. Is next week I have 2 kids and they're starting school, and it's going to be distanced, but I'm not a teacher, and I'm going to have to balance that with work, and luckily I have support too, but it's not going to be easy, right? So, and I know everybody else has their own kind of perspective. So
totally, that's a great. Where are you based, by the way?
I'm in Napa, California.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm on the vineyard, so true to Napa.
Yeah, that's killer. That's so great. The original idea was for the farm tour to come to the States in May, but I'm thinking now, just giving borders and things like that some time to figure themselves out. Like I'm thinking that it'll get bumped to September, but the farm tour is definitely coming to California, and definitely
where in California are you planning on hitting?
Well, I mean, I love that state. I've spent so much time there over the last kind of 8 years. Like I usually, like on a usual year, I'm down there every couple months for sure. And the beauty of the farm tour is that, like, all the tour dates are city centers, right? But where the actual tent and the venue will be is within 45 minutes of city center. So it allows us to find farms to go set up on and invite people out to this space.
Oh, that's really cool. I like it.
Yeah.
So let's go back, and I want to hear kind of how you, kind of your musical taste as you got started. Like, tell me about your household growing up, and were your parents supportive of your musical endeavors, and what kind of music were they playing?
So my parents played a whole mix of stuff around the house. And I think the biggest kind of influence that I took out of that time growing up was like an introduction to Paul Simon. I thought Paul Simon was the ultimate wordsmith, and I thought he was, using like interesting, like, working with interesting musicians and patterns and grooves and music and horns, and like he had so many of those things going. But as a writer, what I love about him is that he can just say something conversational in a song, and it's just like, it can just get you going, so that was kind of that, in terms of, what got me kind of really thinking about having music in my life. My dad plays drums, and so there was instruments around the house, and I eventually asked for a guitar, and that was kind of what got me going down that path. And I think, like any set of parents, any parents in, of musicians or people in the arts or creatives in general, I think there was that transition time from hobby to profession, where I think, everyone takes a little bit of warming up, and I definitely experienced that in my family as well, which is okay, because that gave me a little bit of, I think, fuel to push, to dig in a bit more and to make it a career. So, but no, they are. I have an uber supportive family, and yeah, that that helps a lot, especially in times like this too.
Yeah, and so did you latch onto the guitar right away, or did you try the drums that your dad had? And you weren't about it, or?
Definitely the drums were the first instrument that was suggested. And I love the drums, and what I love even more than the drums is someone that plays them well, and that wasn't going to necessarily be me. And then there's a piano at the house, and so I went to some piano lessons, and then just kind of out of nowhere I asked for a guitar, and I just remember every time I'd go to like a guitar lesson and learn, a new shape or something like that, I'd want to bring that home and we had a little music space set up in the basement, and I'd want to just figure out how I could make up something with that, or, you know, could I string it together, or could I put my own words to it? And so that's kind of where that began.
Yeah. And so you started writing songs in high school?
Yeah, I did. And even in junior high, like, I mean, they were all awful. But you
Yeah.
know, and originally it was all on the electric guitar. I thought the electric guitar was cool. And then it took me graduating, and I borrowed actually my mom's acoustic, and I went traveling a bit. And that's kind of when I started really getting into the acoustic guitar.
Yeah. So, cause it was easy to travel with, right? So you can have kind of a one-man show. So.
Totally. And that's when I started making up songs again. And then when I got back from traveling, that would be the time that I booked a little venue and played my first show, I guess.
Where was that?
There's a place in Calgary called it's called Karma Local Arts House.
Yeah.
It was small, it fit like 40 people. And so I was able to book the room for a night and invited a bunch of family and friends and played these songs. And that was kind of the beginning of me starting to really seek out those acoustic shows. And a bunch of them at the beginning were like covers and covers and covers. And then I'd sneak in the odd song I wrote. And then I remember being at university, and there was a really cool room there called the Tongue and Groove. And I played there, and I remember all my friends from school came, and we sold the venue out. And that was the first night I can remember people wanted to hear my songs more than they wanted to hear a Jack Johnson tune or something.
Yeah. I saw a cover you did of Hey Ya from like 13 years ago.
Yeah, that's from eons ago. Yeah. And that one actually has been requested in the tent like 2 or 3 times, which is really funny.
Yeah. So when you go into to cover a song, how do you kind of make it yours? Because that's kind of something I got from your performance. Also, you didn't you paid homage to this song while kind of individualizing it yourself.
Yeah, I think I've only ever, like, I guess in the last 10 years, anytime I find a cover and start playing it, it's because I just love the song. And then I can't help but, want to just make it different. I do believe that it's like almost your duty as someone covering that song to be true to the melodies that are really important. I think melody is is so important in the song. And so I try to really, I try to leave that alone unless there's something I really, really want to do. Like, I guess I'm pretty, thoughtful about that. But yeah, there's some songs out there that are just so good, and you can't help but want to play them.
Yeah. And so tell me about when you started getting out on the road. How did that go for you? How did you book your first tour? What was that like?
Sure. We won a radio contest here in Calgary. There's an alternative station that had this contest where you won a cash prize and you got to play Virgin Festival, like the Virgin brand. And so we were one of the groups that won it for that year. And so, and a friend of mine, this engineer that I record pretty much everything with, he, especially at the beginning and this most recent record we recorded together, and he was playing in the band at the time, and he told me that I needed to go buy a van. And so I bought a van and trailer with the cash prize. We played the festival. I got an email from an agent right around that time too, and I had no idea what an agent was, and I didn't know how much it was going to cost, and I knew I had no money, so I just kept on putting it down, pushing it down further in my inbox, and just like thinking, I don't know what to do with that. So I just called all these places, emailed all these places, and booked a tour. And that's how my touring life started. It's funny too, that agent that emailed me, that was 2008. The agent that emailed me in 2008 is my Canadian agent now. It just took us another 8 years to kind of figure out and have our paths kind of link back up again.
In full circle, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you mentioned Paul Simon earlier. Did you ever get a chance to see him live? Have you seen him? And how was that?
I did. Well, so it was actually a live clip of him that got me going, really. Like when you think about that moment as like a kid, when you just like, you could feel it, and he had there was like at my local library, you could pick up like a VHS and a CD of him doing the concert in the park, that New York City show with 750,000 people in the crowd. And I would watch that thing and just rewind and watch it. And there's a song called Obvious Child that I just couldn't get enough of back then. And I think it was 3 years ago now, maybe 3 springs ago, he did his kind of final tour. My mom and I, actually, she was the big Paul Simon fan growing up. And my mom and I, we flew to Seattle and went and watched the show. And he was, I think I want to say he was like 78 or 80. And he put on like an amazing show. The vocals were unreal. He danced the whole time. The band was absolutely out of this world. It was so good.
That's so awesome. It's great when an artist can still have it, all these years later, and and put on a show like that, like like it was 20 years before or something, right? So
yeah, or in his case, like 50.
Yeah.
40 or whatever it is. Like he's had such a long career.
Yeah. And so was Yes your first album that you did?
No, I recorded a couple fully independently here in town, and that was what kind of got started. And then I signed to a label and recorded one called The Love LP. And then that was what started me going to LA all the time. And I was working with these producers there, John Levine and Brian West. And over the course of a couple of years, we picked away at the songs and wrote them all together, with the exception of Follow. We wrote all those songs for Yes over a couple of years. And then I released a record called I Want to Make It With You after that.
Yeah. And so how was working with John and Brian?
I loved it. Like they taught me so much about making music and about how different production could be. Like I just thought that I didn't know what I thought about production, and John was my first real experience with co-writing as well. So I just thought, what an interesting world.
Yeah. And so when you went in to make those, albums for the first time, like how much of it did you have prepared already, and how much did they pull, were they able to kind of pull out of you?
Well, so when I would go into those co-writing sessions in LA, I always tried to come in just because I felt like, there was also a good time for me to learn. I came in pretty fresh. Like I'd come in pretty without a bunch of like ideas really mapped out, just to see where it would start. I knew at the time that I wasn't going to be the one that brought up like the drum group necessarily, or like a keyboard line, but like maybe those things would inform a song different than what I'd written before. Yeah.
And so you mentioned LA, and I saw an interesting fact that you rode your motorcycle from LA to Calgary.
Yeah, I had a motorcycle. Around the time we were writing songs for I Want to Make It With You, I actually took a motorcycle down there. We trailered it there. And I left it in a friend's garage, and every time I fly down, that'd be my car there, because with the great state of California allowing lane splitting, it just makes LA a dream. And I loved it. I loved being down there and driving that bike and using it as a car. But then I decided to bring it back to Canada. And so I left LA at like 5 o'clock one evening and drove to Vegas, and then started going up through Utah, and it took me 4 days. And it's probably not an adventure I'd repeat, but I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah. So what would you take away from that, like having that experience? Because that's such a unique, opportunity to do that sort of thing, and in such a tight time frame, right?
Yeah, 4 days, you're right, is super tight for that. And the only reason I only had 4 days is I think I had to fly home I had to drive home and then get on a flight and go play a show. But what I loved about it was that, people kind of knew where I was, but they didn't really know where I was. And I was on that trip solo. And I do love the motorcycle. I love that it allows you to be it demands that you're super present. You know what I mean? And I appreciate having time like that with the way my brain works. But it was definitely, it didn't take long for it to get real. Like the first drive is just, 6 hours or whatever, but my back reminded me that I hadn't been on the bike yet that season, and then the second day I was an hour out of Vegas and it started pouring and it rained for 11 hours, and I got soaked and I had to pull over 3 times. Like at one point I was at the Bryce Canyon State Park and I had all my clothes over the rack at the big fire pit inside the lodge, just trying to dry everything off,
Yeah.
And then the third day I was going down the interstate trying to make up time. So it was going pretty quick. And the shifter on my bike.
You got stuck in fifth gear? Right?
Yeah, I got stuck in, the shifter fell right off. Like the old Harley, it's not actually that old, my bike, but the Harley Davidsons vibrate them. They'll just vibrate this thing or that thing. And next thing you know, the whole shifting linkage was gone.
So what do you do in that? So like, that sounds so scary. Like, what would you even do?
Well, I was getting close to Salt Lake, but I didn't really know that. Like I find that section I've driven that section of highway a bunch of times in a car too. And I didn't really know if I was close or not. And I just thought, okay, well, I got to pull over because I don't have that much gas left in the tank anyways. And I can't just keep driving in fifth forever. Like I'm going to have to find a solution to this. So I pulled over and I called one shop and he said, well, you should call the Harley shop. They're not there, like 15 minutes up the road from you. I thought, well, that's promising. And then I call the Harley shop and I'm on the phone maybe 30 seconds and and I've only been on the side of the road 10 minutes. And I remember clearly, there's a Honda Ridgeline, one of those pickup trucks with a little open air trailer behind it going south on the interstate. He honked the horn twice. And I was saying, that's weird. And then he got off on the exit and sure enough, got back on, pulled over, got out of his truck, we loaded my bike up onto this trailer. Like I'm not on the road 10 minutes, maybe 8 minutes I was on the side of the road. We loaded up on the trailer. He's got bungee cords. We strapped it down. I get into the truck. His wife's in the passenger seat and sitting on the bench with me is his baby. And he just takes me to the Harley dealership.
Wow. I mean, like that is lucky, right? Like, I mean, how long ago was this?
This was in 2000. This would have been 2017, maybe 2018 in the fall. I can't remember which year. Maybe 2017. Yeah.
No, I didn't realize there were a lot of, there were many people out there that still like would pick someone up, on the side of the road. It's dangerous, like
totally. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I still am perplexed about that. I mean, I think that's the kind of thing that, that's the kind of opportunity I look for, to try to do and to try to, help out and whenever I can. But like, you're right. Like to just sit a stranger beside your baby and take them 15 minutes up the road to Harley. It's just like that to me that's next level. And their story was that they were moving out of Salt Lake and they were between loads. They just dropped a load off and they're coming back. So that's why they had the empty trailer.
Yeah. But you said it, you got a kid, right? Like, I mean, you don't do that shit. I can't pick someone up with, when I got kids, maybe there's in a world where I don't have kids, with me or something like that, but just, you can't chance that stuff, I don't know. As a parent, it's just, my mentality, but.
And that trip was full of experiences like that. Like even the day before when it was raining, I was on my way to Bryce Canyon because I thought, it's pouring rain, but I'm not going to not see anything on my way back. And it was recommended to go check it out. So I wanted to go see it. And I was getting so cold. I mean, I was shivering. My gloves were soaked. My hands were frozen. And so I found this diner and I just pulled into this diner. And I was so cold, I didn't want to open up the menu. So when the waitress came over, she said, what would you like? I literally just pointed to the next table where there was an older couple eating. And they're having coffee and fish and chips. And I just said, I'll just have what they're having. And so I got coffee and fish and chips. And then started talking to the couple. And then they left. And I was just, trying to dry my clothes off still. And the next thing I go to pay. And the waitress says, well, no, they took care of your food. And the restaurant wanted to buy you a piece of pie. So if you want to have a piece of pie, we'll bring that over. And it's like, wow.
A lot of decency still out there. So that's good. That's reassuring to hear.
There certainly is. There certainly is. Yeah.
And you yourself have given back in a lot of different ways also. I mean, tell me a little bit about your business, planting trees.
Yeah. So it's called Tree Era. And and what we set out to do is provide like an easy way for people to plant trees, whether they're coming at it from the standpoint that they felt like they needed to, like that maybe their business uses paper goods or something, or they wanted to offset that footprint that we all kind of have as we drive our cars or heat our homes or what have you, or people that just loved nature. We wanted to make it really simple for them to kind of be a part of a community that does that. And so it's definitely, the people that I work with on that, it's a part-time kind of venture for all of us. But it's fun. Like every year we're doing something cool, and more and more trees get planted every year, year on year, which is cool. And excuse me, this is the first time I think that for the farm tour, this will be the first time that I get to combine the two things. And so the idea that we're talking about is every ticket to the farm tour plants a tree, which I think is kind of cool too.
That is a cool approach. And I mean, you guys have planted over 100,000 trees at this point, right?
Which I think we all we want to plant more trees.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like for something that we get to, we get on a conference call every week, and we hear about there's like two wonderful people that kind of, are hands-on with the business, that we get to hear about what's going on. And it's always interesting. It's always interesting the kind of companies that we get to work with, and be that a magazine or an energy company or a candle company, or like, it's a random assortment. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And one other thing I wanted to ask you about, Michael, so this just seems like a really interesting story. You were engaged, you called it off, but then you didn't want to waste those rings, and you were able to give them away in a really creative way. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I've thought about that whole adventure, let's call it, a few times. Like that kind of change in my life is what precipitated me writing that record, I Want to Make It With You, which is, got a lot of songs that are kind of about that, finding hope after love lost, but I did have these rings, and I just thought, if you went and sold them or got rid of them, there's no, you're not adding anything positive to them. Like I don't know. In my thought was that, there's nothing positive for them to give someone else. And so I thought, well, the only thing I could do if I want to just not have them, but give them a chance to be part of someone else's happy story, was we literally scanned the whole country for a great love story. And we had a panel of 20 people that went through all these stories that were submitted. I think there was like 700 back then or something crazy. I can't fully remember, but we went through the stories, and we found one. And I actually had met them. They were fans from the East Coast of Canada, like right on the Atlantic, and their story's just awesome. And so I was able to fly the rings to them, and then I flew back a year later, and I got to sing them down the aisle. And it was cool. I think in hindsight, maybe the whole story was a bit more public than I maybe would have loved. However, that's how we found the story, and that's how we were able to do that. And I do think in giving them away and allowing them to be a part of Matt and Terry Lynn's story, and in the financial kind of hardships they both had to go through to be together, I just think, cool, like, that's all right.
It was put to good use. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally. I think put to the only use. I don't think there was another use that would have made sense.
Yeah, well, that's really great. So let's talk a little bit about Love Valley. So you mentioned earlier, right? Finding that right time to put it out, and a lot of other artists are kind of in the same thing, the same place, right? As our TV shows and movies, and and everything. Like, when is the right time? Because we're all in this really weird space where I think we're all looking for something good, something positive, and so tell me a little bit about how this album came together, and what you brought into it.
Sure. I mean, I started February of 2019, and I took the year with my friend Josh, and we went to the studio. There's a studio here called OCL Studios, which is a fantastic spot, and I'd go out there every month, and we just kind of pick away. And some months are more productive than others. Some months we record songs that were older, or co-writes, or this or that. And what I found is that this album was going to be written in the kitchen at home, and so I just picked away one by one and wrote these songs. And although I love co-writing and all that it's taught me over the years, I was cognizant that I wanted to write some songs on my own again to see what that felt like, and so that's how I did it. I just picked away at them slowly. And we just, in the control room of the studio, not even in the big, tracking room or live space, we just recorded them little bit by little bit and just kind of pieced it together. And then towards the end of the record, we went to Memphis and recorded saxophone. We went to Nashville and recorded pedal steel, and then started mixing it. And then, March this year, we were finishing up the mastering, and then decided that, I spoke to all the industry people I kind of know and some other artists, and decided that it was in the best interest to just go ahead and release it, and just to see what that was.
Yeah. And so leading up to releasing the album, I mean, it sounds like you're going to, be playing the farm shows, right? So you'll be able to get some of the songs out there and kind of, and, play them live, in a way that you want to get that music out, right?
Totally. Yeah, so we released one song in May, one song in July. There's 2 songs coming September the 9th, and then the record comes October the 9th. But yeah, this backyard idea, like, I'm sitting in that antique looking kind of farm chair, and there's those patio lights kind of, and it's there's like this wood floor, and that's what we'll have for the, that kind of same vibe will be what the tent's like for the farm tour. It just seems like the right setting to play these songs too. Like, it's like the ideas are meshing really well. So yeah, I'm happy that we're still forging ahead and releasing the music, and I'm happy that, for the next, for the next couple months, I get to just go and play them 5 nights a week.
Yeah. Well, that's really, really awesome. So I think we're ready to have you play a song maybe from the new album, if you want to.
Yeah. Absolutely. I was gonna play Our River. And I'm on and forgive me too, I'm on my phone, so like I hope the audio sounds okay. But yeah, this is Our River. I feel the time passing, flying by the window. 2000 Toyota, up ahead, the traffic slows. What if we could change it, maybe rearrange it? What if we just trade it in on something different? We could live the game now, seen enough innings, find new beginnings. What if we bought ourselves a farmhouse with a kitchen and FM radio? Yeah. We keep playing Cedars off the back door. When the wind picks up, they'll wave to and fro. Spend no summer nights, magic hour sunlight, run through the yard, down on the bank, stars in the sky, jump into the water, your lip starts to quiver, swimming in our river, getting tired of the city. Not that it's awful or nothing. I get so distracted, just turning with the seasons. Find something permanent, something they can't tear down. Roots in the ground, the land love found. Leave it all behind now. We have enough reasons to find new beginnings. What if we bought ourselves a farmhouse with a kitchen, FM radio? We could plant cedars off the back door. When the wind picks up, they'll wave to and fro. Spend no summer nights, magic hour sunlight, run through the yard. Stars in the sky, down on the bank. Jump into the water, your lips starts to quiver. Swimming in the dark, da 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 da. What if we bought ourselves a farmhouse with a kitchen, FM radio? Yeah. We could plant cedars off the back door, fill the hallways up with rugs, invite everyone you know. Spend no summer nights, magic hour sunlight, run through the yard. Stars in the sky, down on the bank. Jump into the water, your lips starts to quiver. Swimming in our river, swimming in our river.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah.
Very cool. And so that song, I mean, is about kind of looking to the future for you, right? Like you plan on buying a farmhouse and.
Yeah, I do. And yeah, the whole record's that. I really enjoyed this whole idea of just painting out the details, kind of song after song. I thought that was something I just never done before. And why not? Like, it just felt like such a cool thing to do.
Yeah. And so, I mean, at what point did you know that kind of that was the approach that you wanted to take with the album, like that you were going to be looking ahead like that?
Probably after Right Now River. Like, I wrote Love Valley first, and it doesn't really talk about the farm yet. It talks about kind of ascending this mountain to find the valley on the other side, which is where the calm was, is what I thought. And then it started to like make sense to me that maybe that valley and maybe that idea really was this farm. And then Our River starts to ask, like, what if we did that? And then it just kind of meanders from there.
Yeah. Well, it's really beautiful, and I like it. And I want to thank you for taking the time to chat, Michael. And yeah, I mean, the album's really great. I'm looking forward to, and as I'm sure you are, getting it out there and people hearing it, when it comes out in a couple months. So.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. And yeah, thanks for saying that. Thanks for having me too. I appreciate getting a chance to chat.
Yeah, it's good to have these conversations and stuff. So I'll tell you, like, we used to, do Concert Pipeline, and obviously in the name, it's got concerts. So we focus, primarily around concerts and getting out to concerts that are in the Bay Area. Whoever's coming through, we'll chat with, that sort of thing. But, in this new method, it's changed, but it's still great. I mean, it's a great different way to talk to people from all across the world, even, interview bands in Australia and Ireland and Canada now, right? And getting to talk to people who, may not be knocking on our door necessarily, right? But it's a lot of fun. So I'm glad we got the chance to talk.
Yeah, totally. I am glad we got that chance too. Yeah, and I hope to return to the Bay Area as well. Like, I think it'd be great to start exploring to the States with this same idea next year.
Yeah. Well, I hope you do as well, and hopefully we get to see you live and we get past, the mess that's out here, and reasonably unscathed.
Yeah, we'll just meander and figure out what's next as we go.
We'll do it. So
Yeah.
cool. Thank you, Michael. I hope you have a great evening.